It's Senior Bowl week. Practices ended. The game is on Saturday. So who are some of the Senior Bowl standouts Miami Dolphin fans should either go back and find film of or watch this weekend? We will talk about that. Has the Senior Bowl changed Miami's approach to the draft as we've seen some big time risers? We will talk about all that as well. Plus, more controversy over massage parlors in the NFL. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? We will talk about it all. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into this episode and let's dive fin too deep.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown. He's in. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Appreciate all of you for coming through today on this episode. Senior Bowl practices have wrapped up, and like I said, we are getting ready for the Senior Bowl on Saturday. And guess what? And then next weekend we got the Super Bowl, and then officially everyone's done with football, and we're not the only ones. Neil. Last weekend was kind of crazy, though. The Bills, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs, they took care of business. We saw the Jaden Daniels Cinderella run come to an end. How are you feeling with another Eagles Chiefs matchup and Fangio in the dead heat of it all?
Yeah, I'm not going to say I'm not going to watch it, but it's not going to be like a priority for me. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and you know, I it's hard to debate greatness, right? And every time we line up the Lamars, the Josh Allens to knock Mahomes off the throne, and it's not going to happen, you know, anytime soon, I don't think. And, you know, as much as we want things to change, they stay the same. And it's kind of crazy, man, because I'd like this was the worst the Chiefs have looked probably in the Mahomes era. And yet they still find a way to get it done. And here we go again. Full disclosure, I don't like Nick Sirianni, but I do like Saquon. So I'm pulling for the Eagles. But, you know, I'll care more about what I ate for breakfast 4 days ago than the Super Bowl game. So, like, at least it's draft season. You know, as someone I heard say the other day, the loser Super Bowl, the NFL draft, you know, that is why I became a draft fan, because we were always picking so high. So, but it's also our favorite time of the year, and Senior Bowl week has been awesome. You know, I'm not a big fan of all these players that have been dropping out. I think that kind of sucks, you know, but I understand why they're doing it. You know, strike while the iron's hot.
But shout out to Walter Nolan, who's raised his stock and he stayed and practiced.
Yeah, you know, and you know what? It's a little thing, right? But their agents are convincing them to do something. But man, if you truly love it,
Injury, right?
Yeah,
it's
right.
not worth it. Like, if you were the agent of Shamar Stewart, you'd say the same. You'd be like, bro, why play in live action on Saturday when the scouts have seen everything they need to see in the practice? The tape's already out there. You've solidified yourself as a top 15, top 20 pick. Why F with your money? Because that could drop you out of the first round and cost you millions, right?
Yeah, and I get it. Like, look, it's easy for me to sit here on a microphone. I don't have $1 million riding on this. You know what I mean? So, like, I can get why Mike Green pulled out.
But me and you also come from an era where got to remember also, we're the last of the era before the nil. Now we aren't used to players making financial decisions. And over the last couple of years, Neal's been involved. The money in the draft has gone up. And we've seen players now making far more business decisions as college players than me and you saw when me and you were in our teens or me and you were in our 20s. They weren't doing that. Now they are.
And they can get insurance and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's look, as much as we don't want it to be, football's a business, and it's one of the biggest businesses in the world right now. So, like, it's a lot different than 30, 40 years ago, the era I grew up in. It's a different world. If I had millions riding on it, maybe I, sit my ass out if I'm good too. But, there's still a lot of good players that are playing, and you mentioned one of them, and there's a lot more. And I'm excited today to dig into our list because I love talking about the Dolphins. There's no doubt about it, but I do love talking about the draft equally as much. And this has been one of the most fun weeks on the Senior Bowl week that I think I've seen. I've been to 2 of them live, and the talent on the trenches in this week's matchup, offensive linemen, the defensive linemen, the edge group, I think it's an awesome group. And I texted this, we were texting yesterday, but like, it might not be the deepest draft that we've seen in recent years, but damn, does it match well for the Dolphins' needs. And when you look at a team that has been labeled soft and we all know needs to do some work in the trenches, there are a lot of guys that are going to be on our radar. And I think when you look at our list here, it's probably 80% plus offensive edge and defensive lineman, at least on my board.
Yeah. There's some nastiness I'm looking for, man. Listen, I'm excited about the Pro Bowl too because, the Pro Bowl too is also for the Senior Bowl. It's also for guys like us who start becoming echo chambers for certain players we have man crushes on or we really like. This is when people start tuning in because most teams, we're only down to 2 teams, 30 teams are out basically, right? So what's it called? So anyways, so all these fans are now shifting their focus towards what we're talking about and what we've been talking about, the draft and certain players. Like, for example, the fanfare for Jackson Dart this week, right?
Yeah, he's getting a lot of love.
Jalen Milroe, a guy you've liked, right? The fanfare for Jonas Savannah, who I've been talking about on this channel for a couple of months now. The fanfare, I know a bunch of us have been talking about Mike Green in the draft community. People are starting to see the results for that. You know what I mean? Like, and those are just a few examples of guys that people are starting to see the results for. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a good vibe because now you got the combine coming up and you can continue to build. Either you can become firmer on your stance and dig in even deeper on certain prospects, or you start to notice other guys from small town schools, like a guy I hadn't watched, and we're going to talk about him today, at least on my list, but I found him through the Senior Bowl, and I've been watching the tape, and I'm going to tell, Dolphin fans to watch him. I hadn't had a chance to watch Carson Vincent from Alabama
A&M. Yeah.
And, because how many people had Alabama A&M even on their radar with such a small school, right? HBCU, I believe, right? So, now I've been diving into that film. So you find this, I like the Senior Bowl because you can find the really small school gems that might have got away from under your nose, right? So,
right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I like it too because I've already got a top 50 board for 2026, and I start really early. And out of my top 50 board that I did for 2025 at the same time last year, 33 remained on my top 50 that I started from, the April before, which I thought was pretty cool. but like it's amazing to watch the development of some of these guys, man. And like now with the transfer portal, it's a different beast as well, right? Like you talked about Walter Nolan earlier. You know, he was a Texas A&M defensive tackle, transfers to Mississippi. And like I had him on my radar when he was at A&M, and a lot of people did. I'm not sitting here trying to say I found something no one else did, but like, you know, I was hearing whispers all year, like you don't have enough love for Walter Nolan. Like you're a draft guy, you love it, like you're not watching this guy enough. And you know, I've dug deeper into him because, you know, as the draft gets, you find your man crushes and you follow them, and then you dig in deeper. And I've watched this guy, and I see the Ed Oliver comps, but like, to me, there's like a little Aaron Donald in there as well. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's got that type of like motor and get off and like play strength. And like, it's cool to see like how these guys progress through the journey. You know, there's a lot of Dolphins content to talk about over the course of the year, but I think you and I both are always doing something draft related during the football season as well. Like it's like, this is my favorite. I heard someone the other day say this, they hate this time of year for football. And I'm like, damn, dude, I don't know why. Because the next 60 to 100 days is like my favorite with free agency starting in March.
The only lull is like June to July, right?
I hate that.
Like, that's the only lull, really.
Right. I hate that time of year, like the June to July where there's no football. But like, you know, for me, this is where you kind of rejuvenate. You know, you get to see what your team can do in free agency. Like, you know, like the Dolphins, you know, they've added good players every year pretty much for the last 3-4 years, right? So they'll be adding somebody that we're not talking about, you know, that will help fill a hole probably. But then, you know, get to this draft, get to impact players. And I think you can. And for me, a starting guard is an impact player for the Miami Dolphins. Like you upgrade that room, and that's an impact to me, at least, because that guard play between Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg, we beat it to death, but it's awful, man. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And shout out to Ole Miss, man. I watched a lot of their football this year because
they have a lot of guys, man.
Bro, Trey Harris is a receiver. People are sleeping on Trey Amos, like you mentioned. Chris Paul is one of my favorite linebackers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, you man and yo, I just call him Princely. He's
Jared Ivey's another guy.
Yeah,
they have a late safety who I think is going to be a really good special teams guy, Yam Banks, who came from South Alabama. Yeah, I don't know. He's like they have
some talent, man.
Jeremy James on their offensive line. They have a lot of good, talented guys, man. Like Jackson Dart, obviously, who you mentioned earlier. Like they have a lot. And Antoine Wells, who Juice Wells is his moniker. But like Caden Prescorn's a tight end they have that I think is a 5th round type of player. Like they really did have a good roster. Like that's definitely when you dig into the tape, you say like, damn, like that defensive line is
crazy.
Awesome.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And Princely just missed by top 15 because he's been having a really good week at the Senior Bowl this week.
And he's really that versatile guy, right? Like I think he's 285, 290. Like he has good get off for that kind of speed, but he's good against the run.
And Edge is a sneaky little pick for us. You know what I mean? So,
well, and think about what we said at Transfer Porter. He came in from Florida. Walter Nolan came in from A&M. Trey Amos came from Alabama. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's there you go.
They've utilized it and made well of it. So, let's get into here. So Knight says, "Die a hero, live long enough to be a villain." I don't know what he's referring to there. Everyone hit that like and sub. Let's effing go. And that's from Batman. And Daddy Dean says, "Wish Dolphins had a couple more draft picks in the 1st and 2nd rounds. Would like for the Dolphins to grab interior offensive line, safety, QB, and edge linebacker. Do you guys think the Dolphins trade down in the 1st?"
No.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this much. This is the draft if you want to trade down.
Oh, yeah.
This is a draft to trade down in for sure. Like, if I was in the top 10 and, one of the, 5 to 10, you should be, very much considering trading down this year. It just, again, see, people ask that. The problem with answering that question on January 30th is we haven't seen how free agency plays out, and we haven't seen the board start to fall. Trading down is something that really starts to happen as you see the board start to fall. But I do think there's not a ton of blue chip prospects in this draft, which this is a draft. It's okay to move around and back to acquire more picks, because I think the depth in this draft is really between the 2nd and 5th round. Like, that's
Right.
where I think you're going to find the offensive linemen. You know, I don't know if Nick Manowari will get there to the second, but then you got Makuba, you got Watts, you know, you got safety options as you get in the second round. You look at the depth, right? Especially a guy who I've been talking about for months on here, one of my man crushes, and I saw someone said they saw differing opinions, Deone Walker. Right? Deone Walker's a guy I love, and what have I been saying? I've been saying the same things I said about Chop. I've been saying about Deone. Give me Anthony Weaver developing Deone Walker, because my God, 6'6", almost 6'7", 335, almost 340. You can stand. You're such a good athlete for your size that you can be a stand-up rusher and all the way down to a zero tech. Man, slim that frame down, crispin his technique and fundamentals a little bit, and that guy is going to be a nightmare under the proper coaching, right? Because all he needs is be taught. He's got to be so clean technically and fundamental wise because of his pad level. All he needs to be do is get coached up there, slim down his frame a little bit so he doesn't look like he's lumbering a little bit more sometimes, because he's a very good athlete for his size.
Right.
And, you know, but that's a guy you can find in probably the second round.
Yeah, and like, think about this. The Dolphins were heading into the last week of the season with a potential playoff spot, and with a potential playoff spot on the line, right? Yet they ended up with the 13th pick. Like, that they got lucky how the draft board fell. So for me, it's like, I don't want to trade down because I think they're going to get a blue chip player, because, like, I know this sounds crazy. I think Dart or Milrow are going to go top 10. I think one of those two is going to get overdrafted.
I think Dart is.
I think one of them is going to get overdrafted, and like Pete Carroll going to the Raiders, he doesn't have time to go get a free agent quarterback that's like he needs to go get his guy now and make it happen. Like, so, like, I think and I will say this, like, see, I
think Milrow goes in the 20s like Love did, because I think he needs the exact same trajectory.
Steelers.
I think he needs to sit for 2 years.
But look, if they keep Russell, that's a good spot for him.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know I want to fill needs. But let's just say that at 13 they took a guy like Walter Nolan, right? But if you get to the second round and Deontay Walker's there, they're different players.
Double up.
Right.
Double up.
Because if you tell me that our defensive line is going to have Sealer, Walker, Walter Nolan with Chop, Phillips, and Chubb at the end, right? Like, that's what you do. You build a strength. Like, so, like, that's why I'm excited about this draft class, because D tackle is deep, right? There's TJ Sanders, there's other guys, there's the interior offensive line group in this year's class is awesome. Like, there are guys that are definitely going to be on the board when we're there at 48 in the second round. Like, that's why if the right guy's there, 13, like, I don't care. Like, if Kelvin Banks is there, like, I would take Kelvin Banks for sure. But, like, they don't have to take an offensive lineman. I know last year a lot of us did want Fontenot, and rightfully so. But, like, I'm actually more like, go get me that defensive centerpiece to build with Chop, this defense around, and then go get the best interior guard round 2. But don't pigeonhole yourself at all. Go find these guys. And Daniel Jeremiah said it's a really unique draft. Like, there's players at 20 that you'll want to pick that you'll be able to get at 60, right? Like, I think that the same thing is for people that you want to get at 60 that are going to be there at 80. Like, so when you look at what we have in the draft, like, we have the first, we have the second, we do have that third round compensatory pick for Robert Hunt. Ironic enough, we don't get the one for Christian Wilkins. It falls to a 4, but we have 2 4s, 2 5s, and 2 7s. And, like, who knows what this, like, Tyreek, right? Like, could he be moved? Like, do they move a player? I doubt it. I think Tyreek's back, but maybe there's a deal to have to add picks, but I don't think you move back here. I think you try to get as good of an impact player on the defensive side of the ball as possible. The one thing I'll tell you that scares me to death just is, will Chris Grier go to what he typically does? Like, I tell everyone, Benjamin Morrison seems like a Chris Grier pick. And I think he's a good corner prospect from Notre Dame, but he's coming off a serious hip. But that's like the kind of guy that I feel like Chris Grier takes. You know what I mean? Like a corner when there's so many other good talent on the board. But we'll see it. But I'm excited, man, about the draft and this Senior Bowl class. And I love how it mirrors to the Dolphins' needs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting draft, man. And like when we're talking about if you do trade Tyreek, all of a sudden wide receiver comes in need, and there's guys I like Ricky White, Savion Williams, a guy we'll talk about today on my list. There's guys.
I got two
Yeah.
receivers on mine, I think.
Yeah. So there's guys, man. There's guys right now. So
I will say this.
again,
I don't think they're going to trade Tyreek yet. I think they're going to try to make it work, though.
I do too. I would trade him though. But I do think they're listening to offers right now. I think they're playing nice and they're listening to offers. What I don't want to see, and what I think might be the possibility if they are going to trade him, is a draft night trade.
I said this, man. I like the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs. There are three teams that I feel like would sniff around in the right opportunity. It's going to be a lot of probably what will matter is how Tyreek conducts himself over the next 60 days. It's day to day with that guy.
Yeah, agreed. Dad, should Dolphins take quarterback, dart, offensive tackle, interior line, or DT on DI at 13 and safety? It all depends on the board, man. I wouldn't take a quarterback at 13. That's just, and I'm the biggest dart guy you'll meet in this community. I wouldn't take dart at 13. I wouldn't take a quarterback at 13. Now, if dart's on the board at 48, let's have the conversation. Listen, I've already said where I'm at. Give me Campbell, give me Banks, give me Malachi Starks. I don't think Mason Graham is gonna fall. Listen, if they're gonna take Walter Nolan or Shamar Stewart, I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Like
Kenneth Grant.
I think you could trade back and still get Kenneth Grant.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? So listen, I wouldn't want it, but if they took Emeka Ibuka, I would understand why. I don't want it. I wouldn't do it, but I would understand why they did it. Look at the ceiling on the kid. He's one of the best blocking wide receivers in this draft. They're going to move on from Tyreek sooner or later. He is a better complementary piece to Waddle's skill set and Malik Washington's skill set. He's super clean off the field. Yeah. Right. He's a hard worker. He's like, I get it. Yeah. He's going to be one of the better slot receivers in football in a couple years. He's a better player than Chris Olave was. I agree. Well, a lot of those guys, Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, all these guys, they all say he's the best one. They all said he's the best one.
I think he's better than both those guys.
Yeah. I think only JJ is better than him.
Yes.
Obviously. Right?
Yes.
Now the one that, and I kept telling y'all guys this, and I got to talk about now that I got Neal up here right now. All of you over the last couple weeks on X or wherever that were saying Tyler Warren at 13. Have you been paying attention to the Senior Bowl? Are you listening to me now when I said this is a massively deep class? Why would you take a Colston Loveland or a Tyler Warren at 13 when they're not generational like Brock Bowers? What would I say? You could get Mason Taylor, Luke Lachey, right? You could get Harold Fannin. You could get a guy I like, Gunnar Helm. I mean, you could add Elijah Arroyo to that list too now.
Terrence Ferguson.
This is such a deep tight end. Have you seen a couple of people I trust in the scouting community told me privately this is the deepest class they've seen in a very long time. And then Brett Coleman tweeted out yesterday, this is just absurd. It's dude after dude after dude. And then another draft account I follow on Twitter, Kyron Samuels, he's an offensive line guy when it comes to scouting. Even he's tweeted out today, this might be the deepest tight end class we've ever seen. And these people are talking about taking a tight end at 13, Neal. Are you out of your mind unless it's Brock Bowers?
And last week we talked about, we both would take Mason Taylor. He tore it up today.
Tore it up.
Yeah, he tore it up. I still like that. See, that's where I can't go in here searching for needs because good players are on the board. And look, I love Jonnu Smith. I think Jonnu's going to get an extension before the season starts.
I agree.
But again, Durham Smythe to me is going to be a cap casualty. We don't want to see Julian Hill on the field anymore. No, Tanner Connor can get the F out.
He's giving us zero. Yeah, all that hype.
So give me you could sell this fan base on Mason Taylor easily. And Like, dude, he is a red zone monster. The biggest problem that we have, we always say that we have like we don't have a good complementary receiver to Tyreek and Waddle. That is true. But when I say that, what I mean is we have nobody who can catch the ball in the red zone, right? Like we score from 40 yards out, but we can't score from 5 yards out. And Mason Taylor, to me, is a guy that would improve our efficiency in the red zone. He is a very skilled pass catcher. And Harold Fannin, I think Harold Fannin wouldn't surprise me. And I have my ring. I have Loveland above Tyler Warren still, because I think Loveland's athleticism is going to make him a better pro player than collegiate. And in the right system, I think he's going to be a guy that can get a lot of yak. I think Tyler Warren's more of a jack of all trades type. I saw a Gronk comparison for Tyler Warren, and I kind of thought that was ludicrous, to be honest. Like, you can't just give out Gronk comparisons. But Harold Fannin wouldn't surprise me if he's the most productive tight end in this draft class when it's all said and done. It's a good draft. Tight end for me at 13 is too rich. It's too rich.
Bro, dog, because of injuries, you remember, I love this kid last year when he was going to come out. Luke Lachey's ceiling is like Sam Laporta-like, and you might be able to get him in the 4th or 5th because of injuries have set him back so much.
I asked, and someone that I used to work for told me that he was more of a 5th round pick.
And look at the ceiling on that kid. That's because of injuries and the history and stuff like that. Like, that kid can block. He can, like, he's like Sam Laporta-like.
You know what it reminds me? And it's bad timing because he just dropped that 2-point conversion. But I had Mark Andrews as the 18th best player in that draft, and he fell because he had some injuries. He had a knee injury, and they fell to the 3rd round, right? And that was Ozzy's last draft, and Ozzy took Lamar pick 32, and in 3rd round he got Orlando Brown Jr. and Mark Andrews, right? And Mark Andrews fell because he dropped the 2-point conversion. He's a top 5 tight end in football to me. And like, that's what Luke Lachey means, Lachey or however you say it.
It's Luke Lachey. Yeah.
That's how it reminds me. A guy that, we know Iowa tight ends are willing and able and capable blockers, right? Like, he does the dirty work at the position. He would be a perfect substitution for Durham Smythe. Like, the perfect substitution for Durham Smythe. Yeah, because Durham, his tenure here was good. Don't get me wrong. Last year's enough to say, you know what, bro, it's time. And we saved $2.5 million. Like, we got to do it.
Neil, can I be honest with you? I feel like if he stays healthy, you're going to look back at Luke Lachey as being a 4th or 5th round pick, and he's going to be a top 5, top 10 tight end. And it's going to be like, where was Kelsey drafted? He wasn't drafted in the 1st round.
2nd round, Cincinnati, right?
Kittle wasn't drafted in the 1st round, right?
5th round, Iowa, right?
Exactly. So, and where's our old boy Luke Lachey from? Just want to throw that one out there. Right. Good old Iowa State. So I just feel like those are the type of sneaky picks you need.
Oh,
to like grow into something that fill out your roster even further and can help take you to the next step, right?
Yeah, I
think Gunnar Helm, bro. I think everyone is sleeping on Gunnar Helm, Neil. You need to go back on my episode a couple shows ago. I put up analytics, like legit analytics between everyone in this class compared to Brock Bowers. Gunnar Helm, analytically, when you look at yards per catch, when you look at yak, when you look at routes ran, when you look at route depth and targets per depth, Gunnar Helm was the closest thing to Brock Bowers in the analytical standpoint.
Yeah, and look, there's going to be good ones that are in the 4th round, right? Like, there's going to be good tight ends.
Yeah,
and we have 2 picks, and we do have we do have a needed tight end. We had Julian Hill, who was the worst player on our team last year, right? For a guy that played. Durham Smythe couldn't catch anything last year.
Yeah.
Right? It was awesome that Jonah was so good. But to complement him in our 2 tight end sets, like, we need a guy that can do a little bit more. And that's what we can't pigeonhole ourselves saying, if the Dolphins don't draft this, it's a failure. Like, no, go give me 4 or 5 really good football players. 2 of them will probably make an impact and start right away. The other ones I want to contribute, be rotational type players. For example, let's use Mo Kamara as an example. Didn't do nothing last year. I still like him as our rotational deep depth piece this year. He just needs to learn the game. Well,
you know why you should have a shimmer of hope, Neil? Because the first game he started, he wasn't tied for league team. He was tied for the team lead in pressures against the Colts.
Right.
And then he never saw the field again. It was like Jalen Wright got over 80 yards rushing against New England, and then they just reined him back in.
Right.
You know?
And I'll say this because
Okay.
I know we have Devon A-Chain. I label A-Chain more as a weapon, and I think Raheem Mostert could be a cap casualty. This is a awesome running back class. You cannot sleep on this class, and you don't have to go in the first 3 rounds to get a good one. Like a guy that I love in the 4th round, 5th round is DJ Giddens from Kansas State. Like I love him, man. Like there's going to be good running backs too, man. I would love. I think this running back group is like 20 deep, and that's not everyone's going to be Saquon Barkley, but like
no,
Gentry's special. But who's a guy that I would love to get, and I don't know really where he falls. It's probably 3rd round, but like maybe he falls. I like Travion Henderson a lot.
Yeah, he's a beast. I like Gene T, but I also like you're right. This when you look at Judkins, when you look at Caleb Johnson, man, there are some studs.
Marion Hampton, dude, he's a beast.
I'm not that high on him actually. I'm actually lower than most people on him.
I thought I was high. I have Judkins as my running back too.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on Judkins. I'm a big fan of Judkins. Yeah, I would put him and Caleb are probably gonna be my man crushes when it was all said and done. But I would probably go Gene T, Judkins, and Caleb Johnson. That'd probably be my top 3. But I even like Damian Martinez out of Miami. I think he offers a little bit of something
he's like
right?
A 6th round guy.
I know. Yo, I think Trevor Etienne out of Georgia offers something. He's had a good week at the Senior Bowl this week too. He's had a very good week.
I like those guys. I like Devin Neal out of Kansas a little bit too.
I like Ollie Gordon too. Just
not only because I like Ollie Gordon a lot. I
got some autos, but that's not the only reason why. I also like what's his face. I don't know if he's coming out though this year. The kid Khalil Mullings.
Mullins is out. Mullins is out.
He's coming out.
Both running backs, him and Donovan Edwards from Michigan, both came out.
Yeah. So I like him too. Yeah, you're right though. It's a freaking deep class, man. Yeah, it is a deep class. We didn't even talk about Raheem Sanders and
I like the Rocket.
Yeah, so it's a deep class, man. I like it. So, but you're right. I mean, but you just traded up to get Jalen Wright.
I know.
But I'm down with you. Outside of the 5th round, go draft whoever the hell you want.
I like.
What I mean?
I like to get a power compliment. I know this isn't going to happen because I think he's going to go because he had an amazing.
Scatabo.
Yeah, but if he's in round 5, he's like
he ain't gonna be there.
Don't he remind you so much of Peyton Hillis?
Yeah, he ain't gonna be there. I don't think he got so much love affair for that little playoff run before they got knocked out. I don't think
that game was one of the best games I've ever seen a guy play in college. Yeah. I don't want to knock him, but Mullins would be. You mentioned Mullins from Michigan.
Yeah,
he's a guy in round 5 that would be a perfect compliment for Wright and A-Chain. Perfect.
Yeah, bro. And I already got a bunch of his Bowman first and a couple autos, so I'm down, baby.
Let's go. Man.
Roll it. But yeah, he's a beast. But
be our Marion the Barbarian. That's what we need. One of our own Marion Barbarians.
Listen, I would like Scatabo, but I just don't think. I think the hype is going to get real.
He's going to go high. He's going to go way higher than people think. I think.
Yeah, I do too.
He got hot at the right time.
He did, and like you said, that was one of the best non-winning running. Was that the best performance from a Caucasian running back in a college football game?
I didn't have a dog in the fight, man. I was standing up yelling for that guy like he was Rudy Rudiger, man. I was going nuts. It was awesome.
Tyson, we're not gonna have a shot at Mike Green, bro. That guy's stock, man. It's gonna be Abdul Carter, and then Mike Green's gonna be legitimately in the conversation for the second edge off the board, bro.
Him, dude, and
he's no longer a second round, 3rd round secret. He is it's not happening. But I love him. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I would fucking take him in a second.
Oh my god, he's such a stud.
He was awesome this week. Awesome.
All right, let's get into this. Now we're all hyped up.
This is the fun stuff.
The draft and stuff. All right, so here's our list. You know what? When we got the same guys, we'll just talk about their placement on each of our lists, and we'll just run off each other. But because we do have some different guys, so we'll give each other the floor for the different guys. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
So let's get into this. Oh, wrong one there. All right. So here are our top 15, and we got some honorable mentions after the fact.
And we didn't share lists, guys. Like, we didn't do that. Like, we did this dark.
Yeah, he said I sent you my list in the DMs, and my list was about halfway done, and I finished my list, and then I went into the DMs and got his list. So we were both done. So both of us have Jonah Savannah on him. I have a number 1. You have him at number 5. I think both of us would salivate at the chance at him if he's on the board at 48.
100%.
I don't know if he's going to be there because I do think I think if a team wants to stick him at right tackle, I think he could stick. I saw people trying to say, I don't know if he's a scheme fit. He climbed into the second level. Ladies and gentlemen, this man was clocked running over 19 miles per hour. All right. He's got some of the best feet in the draft. He's very smooth, crisp, fleet of foot. All right. So he can move to the second level, no issue. I mean, I had to put someone in their place yesterday because they were like, oh, what is this going on? This guy, I don't know. Like, I want you to think about this. Look at the size that this man is, okay? This man, all right, he's been clocked running faster than 19 miles per hour. He squatted 532 pounds, benched 406, and he's power cleaned 355 pounds. He's an absolute monster that can move. He has the nastiness me and Neal were talking about earlier that you need in the trenches. I think he's the ideal fit at right guard. And if you're in a pinch at right tackle, because Austin Jackson always goes down, you could kick him out there and it would be no issue. Arizona, they ran a primarily zone offense, right? And they did have some power concepts mixed in there, which we need to do anyways. Power gap concepts, we need them put into this offense anyways. So Jonah Savannah, I got him as he's just the dream pick for me at 48. Where are you at,
dude?
Neal?
If he's not a scheme fit for your scheme, change your scheme. Like that like Jonah, he is. It's just hard to project which off, because look, a few of the high quality interior guys are going to be there at 48. It's just who does the NFL love? Like, right? Yeah. Like, just because they tear up the Senior Bowl doesn't mean it. Like, the tape shows Donovan Jackson, Ohio State, had a tremendous year, right? Could he fall? Gray Zabel, he tore up the combine. I mean, Senior Bowl as well. Jonas, I love Jonah. I think he's a stud. He's if you ask me the guard that I probably, if I could pick any guy that could play guard in our offense in the entire draft, it'd be Tyler Booker 1, Jonah for me number 2.
I agree. That's how I have him ranked.
Yep, I love what he brings, and man, I think that you put him on the right side between Brewer and Austin Jackson, and you're kind of cooking with some grease over there, right?
Yeah, like, you are.
He is a really good player. I'll be honest, I like him enough that I would say that it's probably a little bit of a reach for an interior guard, but I'd be okay with taking him at 13.
Yeah, or even trading back and snapping him in the late teens or early 20s. I'd be down. Now, number 1, you got Shamar, a number 1 for you.
Yeah, man. And I'll be honest, I didn't really watch him too much during the season. The Shamar from Texas A&M that I had originally charted was Shamar Turner. And dude, this guy. So when we talk about the Dolphins needing leaders and dogs. This dude's calling his shots against the top offensive linemen in football and just running right through them. His hands are so heavy and violent, man. He has the feel to me. His progression in this combine reminds me of Khalil Mack when he was coming out of Buffalo. I think Shamar Stewart is a franchise-changing type of defensive end. And, the contrary to this is we got Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, right? Yeah, and Chop. Well, Chop's going to be on one of the edges. There's no doubt about it going forward. Mm-hmm. Bradley Chubb, he could be a post-June cut. They might restructure him and bring him back. Whatever it is, it's not going to be long for him here. Jalen Phillips, I love Jalen Phillips. He's on a 5th-year option. I'm not comfortable giving Jalen Phillips big money. I don't know if you are. I'm not yet. I got to see this guy come back from injury. Yeah, and even if he comes back and has a good season, we let Wilkins and Hunt leave. We get the compensatory picks. I think we're going to let Holland leave and get the compensatory pick. we might just have to do that with some of these players, man. And you give me Shamar Stewart paired with Chop, and they're such different football players, but both do such good things. Like Shamar Stewart can set an edge, maybe better than anyone in this draft. He's against the run. He's a beast. He's mean. He's violent. You know, we've lacked something in this organization for a while. And I just think that he brings that. My fear is that a team like Carolina at 8 is going to jump on a guy like this. Like, a lot of mocks have them drafting Michael Williams from Georgia. Mike Green and Shamar Stewart's performance is probably going to get them drafted before him because they're going to go with what they saw versus the upside here. And I think both those players have upside, but Shamar Stewart, I think, has been one of the three best players there, and I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, I agree. Him and Mike Green have probably been the two best players there this week. And, I mean, you basically articulated it as well as you can. I mean, I honestly think he's probably going to be him and Mike Green vying for 2 and 3 off the board after Abdul Carter at edge. I do agree with you. Like, I think they have jumped the Georgia boy that I know the Dolphins are very high on.
Right.
And man, Mike Green, and I got Mike Green here too, and we can talk about him. I got number 2 and Shamar number 3. Mike Green was there a rep he lost this week? But both of them basically, I mean, think about this. You still had 1 day of practice left, and you also still had the game to play, and your agents told you to pack up shop. If that doesn't tell you that you basically solidified you guys as being 2 and 3 after Abdul Carter, I don't know what has, because I believe that's why Walter Nolan is still playing, because he's still vying for number 2 behind Mason Graham.
Right. Look, Mike Green, they got enough intel to know that he has surpassed the James Pierces of the world, the Michael Williams.
Yeah.
I think he's at worst locked himself up to be a top 15 pick at this point.
Agreed.
Going out and getting 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl is not going to even help him at this point. Like,
nope.
he put dominant. Like, we're talking about how good these offensive linemen are. We have been for 30 plus minutes, right? Mike Green and Shamar Stewart beat the shit out of him. Like, it is what it is. It's like Mike Green. Like, he's a guy that's I mean, dude, he had 17 sacks last year, and I get that he's at Marshall, and he's not playing the SEC schedule, but that production's insane. He is a gamer. I mean, you could see him definitely going before Miami's on the clock. But those 2 guys, I think, helped themselves more than any 2 players in Mobile this week. And look, I'm not coming into this season saying edge is the biggest need for the Dolphins, but I'll do a cartwheel if we take either of those 2 guys at 13.
I agree. So at number 2, we've talked about Mike Green. Number 2, you had Walter Nolan. I got him at 6. You are super high on him, and you were texting me yesterday. This is the guy I want at 13 right now.
Yeah, he's kind of taking Jerzon Newton's spot out in my heart of the defensive tackles, like how I was on Newton last year. And I think Nolan's actually a little bit better. He is quick. He is also violent. He is strong, man. He is a strong football player. I think he is the second best. I still do like Kenneth Grant a lot. I got to be honest. I do. He's at the Shrine Bowl. He'd probably be my number 1 player if I was putting a Shrine Bowl list together. But I just think Nolan is a guy that, like, in today's NFL, when you want interior pass rush and you want a guy that can penetrate right off the snap, Nolan does that. And I hate to say it, but I think he's the perfect replacement for what we lost with Christian Wilkins, right? Like, Campbell played awesome. I don't think Campbell's coming back. Defensive line is a huge position of need, right? Like, we have Sealer, and that's about it, right? Getting the defensive line, they get a guy like that. I still think they got to go 0 tech in the middle rounds, like a Jamari Caldwell, a Nazir Stackhouse, the dude CJ West from Indiana. Go get me one of those guys later in the draft. Those run stoppers tend to be there. But, man, Walter Nolan would be a guy that would be an A grade for me for the Dolphins. I think he's a great fit for what we do.
A guy I got at 4 here, and you got him at 8 on your list. And he's arguably been the best interior offensive lineman this week is Gray Zabel, and he came into this week, obviously, from North Dakota State. There's a couple questions. A, how would he look against better competition? And he's completely answered that question. I mean, he has a couple reps where he's pancaking dudes this week. And then the other thing is, where is he going to fit at? Is he a tackle? Is he a guard? Is he a center? I know he's lined up basically everywhere this year. I mean, you look at a guy, I mean, cold weather, got a little edge nastiness to him, great footwork. Good, like he's really solid in terms of his anchor, his hand placement, just his fundamentals all around. You look at, they've produced Billy Turner, Dylan Radins, Cody Mock, and now, you got a guy in Gray Zabel who looks like he's going to be the next NDSU hit at guard, and his stock, man. I mean, you're talking about a guy who there's no way he gets out of the second round at worst right now, and we might even be talking high in the second round, because the big question was the competition, and he answered those questions this week, man. What a freaking week from this kid.
Yeah, you know what? He has a feel to me like a Dan Campbell guy. Like I could see the Lions liking him because Seidler is a free agent. I mean, look, that's one of the beauties of the Senior Bowl to me, is when a guy who's a small school player gets a chance to prove that he can hang with the big dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And Gray's able did that with Spades this week. I mean, he was awesome. He did a tremendous job. I'm drawing a blank. I remember around midway through the collegiate season, it might have been Jeremiah. It was somebody who's a big draft, analyst guy. It was like he had something that he wrote about Gray Zabel and like how he wasn't getting enough love. And then I started looking, I'm like, damn, but like I did not expect, I think, what I've seen this week from him. And what I see is just a guy that's extremely physical. He plays with a good, nasty temperament. And man, his technique is really good. Like for a guy that's going and getting coached at North Dakota State, he plays with great leverage. He can anchor well. He got great hand placement. Like he's a kind of a technician early, and that's a good thing to say. When you talk about the 48th pick in the draft, again, there's a guy that I would be more than happy with plug and play left guard on this line right now.
Mm-hmm. At 4, you got a guy that I have down at 13, Josh Connerly Jr. We've talked about him a bit on this channel before. I'm on record saying this is a guy Greer's going to love when he puts the tape on. I've talked about on the show with you, I believe, my fear that that's who they're going to take at 13 is Josh Connerly Jr. Had that rep where he got dominated by Mike Green,
He did.
but didn't get enough credit for coming back on the next rep and stifling Mike Green a little bit on the very next rep and winning the rep. One of the few reps Mike Green lost this week. Because Connerly's not a guy that's easy to beat off the edge, especially, with good bend and around him, because he's got such good feet and he moves so well. What did you think of Josh Connerly this week?
Yeah, well, I overall I thought he and Donovan Jackson were the best 2 offensive linemen in the entire college football playoffs. Like they both played out of this world, and I'm a guy that has Will Campbell penciled in as a guard. I don't have Will as a tackle. Like I think he's Brandon Scherf at the next level, which is a compliment. But I think Connerly to me is the second best tackle in this group. I know scouts like him higher than like the NFL Twitter draft community, like myself. He's versatile. He is a guy that I think could be a true left tackle at the next level, which is rare. I'll say like a team like the 49ers ahead of us is a team that with Trent Williams getting older, whatever that looks like they need offensive tackle help. So I wonder if he's even there. I think he actually falls though a little bit, and I think he falls to the early 20s. Teams like the Rams, the Ravens, they make a lot of sense. Maybe the Texans, but yeah, I like Josh Connerly a lot. I'll say this though, I don't like him enough that I would say you take him and send Patrick Paul to the bench if Armstead retires. Like I'm good with giving Patrick Paul that year at left tackle to see if we need to draft a guy later. So I do like Connerly a lot. he did have that rep against Mike Green that looked really bad, but I do think he's got upside to be a very good left tackle in the NFL.
Agreed. I got a 5. Actually, I'm going to talk about 2 here. At 5 and 10, I got 2 guys who were on my top 10 in my top 10 because I finalized 3 boards already. My quarterback, my tackle, and my guard big board. Jackson Slater and Clay Webb were both in my top 10 heading into this week, and they've done nothing but continue to solidify this. I mean, these are 2 guys where I think, man, you look at Jackson Slater. Did you see some of the reps he had against Walter Nolan this week? Really good anchor, really good base, clean footwork. I'm a fan of this kid and what he offers. And when you look at a kid like a Clay Webb, man, Clay Webb is another one who had a really strong week and was standing up against top end talent this week. Clay Webb had some really good reps this week against Deone Walker, who we're going to talk about here real quick, where he stifled him. Now, here is where it gets really interesting for me. Everyone knows what's the deal. Your boy loves interior linemen who played, wrestled, right? And
The
when
Tyler
you
Linderbaums of the world, the Tristan Wirfs, the Marshall Yandas, all those Iowa boys.
I'm a, I don't know what else to say. Like I don't know why. I just feel like, and that's what I love about Clay Webb, Jacksonville State, Clay Webb. And, he talks about it all the time, how wrestling really helped him in the interior. And you watch him and you watch the hand fighting, right? I think that's another thing it really helps with is that hand fighting in the trenches too, right? And Clay Webb, I mean, small school guy, Sacramento State, Jacksonville State, going to fly under a lot of people's radars. But I'm telling you, put the film on. These guys are legit guard options, I think. And I thought they would be outside of round 2 and round 3. I don't know if they'll be outside of round 3 as much anymore.
Well, and look, Clay Webb started at Georgia. He left because they have Dylan Fairchild and Tate Ratledge, who are both very, very good NFL going to be NFL starters. So Clay Webb,
what's funny is I have him ranked over both of them.
Yeah,
on my guard list.
But that look, that happens, man. And you go to a school so you have an opportunity to showcase what you can do. That's why there's schools like Jacksonville State. That's a lot of people. That's where Shador started, right? Like there's programs that are liftoffs and they're also landing spots. And I think both of those guys are going to be capable NFL players. Clay Webb is a guy that, I like Clay Webb a lot. And I think he's going to be a good value in this draft. And as I said before we got into this, you're seeing a lot of defensive linemen, offensive linemen. It shows you kind of where our head's at when we look at this draft class, because it really is the strength of it. And yeah, man, I think both players are good players, and we both here have, I guess, next in the striking zones is Deone Walker. You've already talked about your affinity, your love for him. Like, he is a guy that if he mentally catches up to his physical traits, you might look back and be like, that's the biggest steal in the draft. That's what he has. He is a physical presence that can absolute dominate. And sometimes I think he forgets that. You know what I mean? Sometimes he plays like he forgets that. With the right coach, like, that guy has like game-changing potential. Like,
the ceiling's through the roof, bro.
The ceiling is so high right there. And he's like, see, that's where, like, you go round 1 and you take a defensive lineman. He's the kind of guy at 48 that you might say, you know what? I like Gray Zabel, and I think he's a good quality guy that can start at guard. But damn, if I put this Deone Walker guy next to Walter Nolan, who I just drafted in the first round, like, you're transforming your defense to where defensive line is a question mark to something that might produce the most upside in your whole defensive side of the football. So Deone Walker to me is a guy, like, in my initial mock that I did midway through the season, I had him going 15. Like, I had him going 15 overall. Like, this is a guy that like his
What's he going to be,
potential,
21 at the draft? He's just going to turn
young
21 by the
guy,
draft.
oozes potential. Like
Yeah.
he just needs to screw it on a little bit. It's not that he's not a bad character guy. I think that he's just probably been so good in his career coming into the college football that he hasn't developed that trait to turn it all the way up yet. And I think
Yeah.
once he does, watch out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We're going quarterback talk now, man. In
We
the middle
are
of this.
now. I got my guy Jackson Dart. You got Jalen Milroe. For me, with Jackson Dart, I mean, I've already said what I had to say yesterday. I think a lot of people clearly have never evaluated quarterback before, watched the Senior Bowl before. I don't know why people were surprised by Jackson Dart's fumbles on the first day when the majority of the snaps came out of shotgun. I know you'll remember this, Neal, but did people all of a sudden forget Justin Herbert never took a single snap under center and what was happening in his first couple of days at the Senior Bowl? They're putting him under center and they're getting him out of in situations that were comfortable. Jackson Dart, like Justin Herbert, is going to work all season with quarterback coaches on his 3-step and his 5-step drops and taking snaps from under center. That's going to be a big part of his game and his development. But you look, he's clearly been the best quarterback this week, and he's gotten better and better. And another thing about Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart, why people need to show a little patience, these are receivers they haven't thrown to all year. They got to settle in with their receivers and start to lose. That's why you saw Jalen Milroe looked really good today compared to what you had seen the last 2 days. That's why you saw Jackson Dart yesterday starting to settle in, and then today was his best day. That's
Right.
why you're starting to see some of these throws happening in the 11-11s. Jalen Milroe looked much better in 11-11s today than he did in 11-11s yesterday. That's why you're starting to see that stuff. So I don't know what quarterback is the one position of the Senior Bowl where you need to literally let it play out. You
Right.
can't just automatically, unless you got some guy who's just absolutely generational coming in there and going to tear it all up. But
Right.
I mean, even with a guy out of Laurier, Tyler Algersma, you can see the tools are there, but he's being asked to do things he wasn't asked to do up here in Canada. So
Yeah,
you
look,
got to
Yeah, I got Jackson on that my list at 11. If I had to put it out there, and this is a compliment, I view him as a high-end version of Baker Mayfield. A guy that plays kind of fearless, can create with his legs a little bit, pushes the ball downfield.
Who are we talking about? Jackson
Dart.
Yeah,
I think he's got high Baker, like when Baker's playing his high level, and we've seen it. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from Jackson. I do like him. Like you can't expect instant harmony with your center that you just met 2 hours before you start taking snaps. It takes time, and I do think him. And yeah, I have Milroe here, and I was so excited to see that the Dolphins talked to him. And this isn't a guy for 2025. It's really a guy for maybe 2026, maybe the second half of 2026. But one of my biggest gripes with the Dolphins is they fail to take quarterbacks that have traits. Last year, I wanted Joe Milton. I wanted him in the 5th, 6th round. I knew he's inaccurate. He probably couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. That's how Lamar played at Louisville. I'm not saying these guys are Lamar, but I do think Jalen Milroe has elite traits, and those traits are his ability to create with the run. I mean, I think when inserted into a starting role, Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts are probably the only 2 runners better than him in the NFL. And I think with coaching, Jalen Milroe can become a higher version in the right situation of a Jalen Hurts. I think he could be a Jalen Hurts type player, but he needs a lot of development. The Georgia game for me last year was special. He was awesome in that game. He struggled towards the end of the season. I will say I don't think he played on the dominant Alabama teams that we've seen other quarterbacks get the benefit of doing. And it's nothing to do with it. I'm just saying in general, like the Mac Jones of the world. Like I think, Ryan Williams he had, and then he had Jeremy Bernard, but they didn't have a lot of tight end. The running back situation was okay. I like Milroe's upside, but I will say it's a humongous risk, right? It could be a boom or bust type of player. Yeah, I'm with you. They're not. I know there's a lot of talk of the Dolphins taking a quarterback at 13. I just don't see it. I think they're committed to Tua for this year, and that they want a solid backup plan. But
look at the quarterbacks that talked to the media yesterday. They all basically said that they talked to us about the backup quarterback position.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was worded properly, because the guy I think they're going to draft is probably going to be a guy like Dylan Gabriel, to be honest, in the 4th, 5th round. I think they draft a guy, and I think they sign a guy. Like, I think they might have 3
Yeah, they're
quarterbacks
gonna
on this
double dip.
roster. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna
you
be a
have
young
to.
guy. It's gonna be a
You
young
have
guy, Andy Dalton, and Tua. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and this is what I've been preaching since all year. You got to double dip, and I agree with you. I do have a feeling it's going to be a guy like a Dylan Gabriel. I hope it's not, because I'm not a huge Dylan. Like, I hope
Me either.
I'd
I don't
rather
like
take
him.
a shot on a Colin McCord, a Curtis Rourke, a Seth Hennigan from Memphis. Seth Hennigan gives me a little bit of Baker vibes too. I would rather roll a dice on them. The reason why I don't have Milroe on my top 15 is this. I don't think they're going to take a guy that they would have to invest 2 years in
And change their scheme. And change their scheme.
Like I said this, like with Jackson Dart, Shador, Cam, I think even with a guy like McCord or even with a guy like Quinn Ewers, because where those guys are at as passers right now, they could probably come in and execute and win a game or two for you. I think Milroe in year 1 would be a mitigated disaster if you threw him out there.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are a team that's going to have a lot of love for him. The Raiders, if they don't go quarterback round 1, he'll have a home in the top. I think he's gone before pick 48. Just supply and demand of quarterbacks.
Yeah,
My stance on the quarterback position is, when you want your next guy, be patient. The next year's draft class is where you're going to get it. Like that. That's just how I feel. I get if they want to invest a middle round pick in a guy to go get your Andy Dalton. And I don't say that with a lot of excitement, but go get your guy that's going to be your backup. Get your young guy. Let's hope that you make the offensive line better. You help develop a run game, and Tua is a little bit less risky with some of the things he does in protecting himself. But
this is where the value comes in for them drafting a quarterback that not enough people are talking about. And I'm the only one that keeps talking about this. If they draft a guy and Tua gets hurt, which history tells us is likely, and this guy has to come in and play, and in the preseason he already flashed, and then he flashes when he comes in, he could actually maybe extend their shelf life.
Right.
Greer and McDaniel can then go to Ross and say, see, we did what we could with Tua. He can't get healthy, but see what happened when we drafted our own guy? You see the flash we got out of that? Now imagine if we spent a top 15 pick on that, or imagine if you gave us more time to develop this kid.
Yep. And then if it doesn't work out with Tua this year, Mike can say, I need my own guy. And that, look, I will be honest. I'm a big Mike McDaniel critic. I said, let's fire this dork after Jason Sanders missed the field goal against Seattle, right? With that said, I do think that, if you're going to hold on to this guy, let him draft a quarterback that he can develop, and it doesn't have to be a round 1 guy too, right? I'd love to see what he can do on the development of a quarterback side, because whether people like it or not, and we're frustrated with
Skylar Thompson wasn't a good start.
But he did break. Mike McDaniel brought the best out of Tua Tagovailoa. There's no doubt about it. He did do that, and that you can't debate that. We saw a guy that was a MVP candidate for peaks and valleys of the NFL season under Mike McDaniel. I do think that if Mike McDaniel's future is in Miami, letting him develop the guy with the traits he wants important. Jalen Milroe, I like Milroe the player. If I'm for the Dolphins, I'll be honest, in their current environment, I don't know if he's going to be successful. You got to have a team that's that hard-nosed team that loves to run the football. He said his favorite team's the Baltimore Ravens. They don't need a quarterback, but that would be the perfect environment for him, just like it was for Lamar, right? I'll be honest, as much as I like Milroe's my QB too. I don't think he's a good fit in Miami the way we're designed right now. I don't think so.
Jackson Dart is my QB too, so there you go.
Yep.
So let's just run through the list here, okay? I'll start with mine. Demetrius Knight.
He's gonna. I
got him at 9. He's him and Chris Paul are my 2 man crushes at linebacker this year.
Chris Paul is fun.
Demetrius Knight might actually be my linebacker 1 when I finalize my board. I'm a big fan of that kid, and he has all the tools and traits you want to see for a linebacker. Already went over Clay Webb. Mason Taylor I got here. I kept telling all y'all this talk about a tight end at 13 with Warren is nuts. Mason Taylor has showed out. Dolphins can continue the Taylor bloodline.
He should be on my list. I just forgot about him. I'll be honest. I forgot.
He's a weapon. He's deadly after the catch. He can high point the ball. He can make contested catches. Jason Taylor's on record saying they're really working on improving his blocking. I love Mason Taylor and what he offers.
God, I love JT, man. Fucking
Yeah.
love Jason Taylor.
Anthony Belton out of North Carolina State. He's a top 10 tackle on my board. He's had a fantastic week. They've moved him at guard, at tackle. Great player. Great player.
Dude, he's a guy, if you double down an offensive line in round 4, he's like a perfect pick for what we do. I like him, man. And that same mock that I referenced earlier, I did 2 rounds. I had him going into round 2 to the Packers. I really like Anthony Belton a lot, man. I think he's an underrated draft prospect.
He's got that workhorse edge to him too, man. You know, like.
And look, he was surrounded by garbage at NC State. Man.
Sure.
You know, it's hard to stand out when you're on the NC State's football team. Let's be honest.
And then I got Josh Connerly, Marcus Mumbai.
We both got him at 14.
Tackle converted to guard from Purdue. I really like what the kid's offered. He's had a really strong week too. Now I like Armand Membo better than him, and I think he can stick a tackle, not just guard.
I heard that guy, and I think he's good. I heard he's going top 15.
Yeah, dude, he's good, man. I got him in my top 5 tackles of the class, and I think he offers you guard versatility too. Then finally for me, I think this guy's been one of the best. You'll see the other one I think's been one of the best, but I think he's been one of the best receivers this week is Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. He has just been damn near unguardable when you've seen him, 6'4", 220. His release package has been fantastic all week. He's shown a vertical threat to his game. You look at this guy, we're talking about a guy who he just had 4 drops on 295 targets over the last 3 seasons.
Right.
Like, I mean, if you don't get an Emeka Egbuka or you don't get the prototype, I've said, Tet McMillan, Jaden Higgins is another prototypical fit you're looking for to match up with the speed in this offense at wide receiver in this offense, I think.
Yeah, dude, guy high points the football at a high level. If you like Tet McMillan, you like Jaden Higgins. He's got a pterodactyl wingspan. Yeah, like he moves well. Like he's another guy that like I've heard going early round 2, which is just I mean I can see it. Like it's when you do a mock and you really sit down and you don't do it on a simulator and you handwrite, like it is hard when you get to like pick 50 and you're like, holy shit, where am I going to fit this guy in? Like I know he's a good player, like, but only 50 players can go in the top 50 spots, you know? So it's like really challenging to do, man. But my 9, I have Tez Johnson from Oregon. I think he's a complete game breaker. He was a big time player in the college football playoffs. He's been dominating. He's slippery, man. He runs
Tank
great
Dell
routes.
Vibes.
Tank Dell's vibes, like I've seen that. That's good stuff, dude. TJ Sanders is another one of those interior guys. He wins with power, man. He is, and I know that I know for sure the Dolphins like him. I think it was the first prospect I heard they liked this year, all the way back in like October. I have Jackson Dart. We talked about him. Quincy Riley. Like I do think that it's ironic that we have one corner on both of our lists because I think, in their way of thinking, that corner's probably a bigger need than they think, right? Like than we think. I like him. He is a fluid mover. He is just he's a guy that in round 3 at that compensatory pick, I think could make a lot of sense. And I think he could probably be the player that we hoped that Cam Smith was. Ariante Ursary was a guy that, he had first round buzz. He cooled because he was struggled a little bit in the back half of the season. But man, he handled power really well this week. I don't like him at 13. I'll be honest, that's a little rich. He's a guy that if he fell in our laps in round 2, I would make that type of pick.
Yeah.
Marcus Mbo from Purdue is a guy that might be the most versatile offensive line. He could probably play all 5 positions. This guy has like New England Patriot vibes to me. Like, a guy like they drafted Michael Nwanyu and moved him all around. I like he's a dude that is just as advertised, tough in the middle. And then 15, I talked to a coach at Maryland who said this is the best one we've sent out since Diggs. And like I think Ty Fulton is a hidden gem. I'm a Maryland alum and I pay a lot of attention to the Terps, even though our laughable football school. But like he is a guy that I think when you look at number 3 wide receivers and what you're trying to do, and you know, my takeaway from our list, man, is that like, yeah, I think we're in agreement. Like this team needs to go, and I like Malik Washington, and I'm not saying he's not part of the solution. I'm planning for life without Tyreek Hill coming.
Tyreek, yeah.
And I think it happens after this year or at the trade deadline. But like
Yeah.
they have to start planning for life after him. And
Yeah.
that's the way it is.
So I also did honorable mentions. Now a few of them are were on Neal's list as well. But my honorable mentions were Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. I've started watching his tape. He's probably going to finish just on the cusp of a top 10 tackle in this class.
He's going to get drafted in the 3rd round, I think, man. I think he's going to find his way at the end of the 3rd round to get in there. He's had a good week.
And I like what I see from this kid when I put on the tape. I think another one who's really rose his stock this week was Elijah Arroyo.
Yes.
Big time.
He's going to be tight end 4.
Yep. Miles Frazier, another guy who can play all around the interior, and he's had a really solid week, winning a lot of key trench battles. I had Quincy Riley too, because I do agree with you. Cornerback is a low-key need. That's why I've said, 3 guys in the top 10 who I would love to follow us that I know won't are Mason Graham, Tet McMillan, and Will Johnson. I know they won't, right?
I would take Will Johnson at 13 in a second.
And a guy who has had a really strong week, and I think fits, and I'll give you my reason why I think fits what they would look for in a receiver is Jack Besh out of TCU. Now, everyone's talking about me. I'm really high on Savion Williams. But when you look at Jack Besh out of TCU, remember, what are we talking about? A converted tight end, 6'2", 215, has a drop rate under 2%. I'm
trying to find his 40.
68.4 contested catch rate. Like he's a really damn good run blocker.
Yeah, 6'2", he runs a 4.55 40. So, you know what's funny, man? Like, it was Jordan Reed from ESPN today. He goes, Jack Betch catches everything, and like
everything, bro.
It's funny because those TCU receivers.
Savion's being slept on too. That guy's got traits for days.
Yeah, man. Like and that's like I have this suspicion that wide receivers high on the bingo card for the Miami Dolphins. Like I think it is, and like it's if you have
look at Jaden Higgins and Besh make a ton of sense when you look for what they like in wide receivers or what they're looking for.
Right. And like I do like overall the receiving group. I don't think it has the stars like like the high end guys, but Matthew Golden from Texas is a guy that's going to get a lot of love. His counterpart Isaiah Bond, who's the Alabama
He's
transfer.
Already getting a lot of love, bro. I've heard Golden potentially back end of the 1st round, bro.
Yeah, I got my new mock coming out. I have him in the 1st round too. I mean, you mentioned Egabuka. We didn't even talk about like Luther Burden, but like he's like a Waddle vibe
Higgins
type
running
of guy.
mate, Jalen Noel, everyone's falling. Yeah, everyone's falling in love with him.
You said Trey Harris. I think Trey Harris is a guy that's going to be a way better pro player. Like that's like kind of the Mississippi players vibes, right? Like these receivers, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, like take a huge leap in the NFL. Like I think Trey Harris could be one of those guys.
Another guy we didn't talk about that I think they would like him is Harold Fannin this week. Did you see they've been lining Harold Fannin up at fullback?
Yeah, he's a chess piece, man.
Exactly, and I think they would like that. I think they would like that.
He's a good player. That's like,
dude,
so when you go through these lists, and we're not even talking about the guys that aren't there, right?
Yeah.
And the guys we know are going to go top 10. Like that's where, like, what matters to me is the top 48 picks because, this draft class, somebody's getting pushed, and like, you'll hear like, no way, Will Johnson's going to be there 13. Well, I would say that I don't know that. Like, I don't know because the way I see the top 5 picks going are, I think it's going to go Cam Ward. I do think that a lot of this is smokescreen. They're going to take him. I think Cleveland's actually going to go Abdul Carter over Travis Hunter. I've heard that they like him a lot. I think Shador's going to get overdrafted at 3. I think at 4, the New England Patriots, like a lot of people think they're going to take Travis Hunter. I think they could be a landing spot for Shamar Stewart or Mike Green. Like I really do think Mike Vrabel wants a defensive weapon for himself. and then James up at 5, and I think they could go Mason Graham there, and boom, like these somebody's going to get pushed into our lap, man. Somebody.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like you got to be versatile on draft night, because like I'm even at this, man. If we get to like pick 8 and Carolina's on the board, right? And Mason Graham's there, I mean, I'll give up a 3rd round in 2026 to move up from 13
Same
to 8
with
to
Will
go
Johnson.
get Mason Graham. Right.
Same with Will Johnson.
Because I think Will Johnson, honestly, could be the best player for the Dolphins right now. Like, I think he is a true guy that can be a top 10 corner in football before you know it. Like, what's funny? You remember the whole debate between Sauce Gardner and Stingley, and Sauce's career got off to a better start, but ball doesn't lie. And then all of a sudden Stingley is the all-pro and getting all the picks. Like, Derek Stingley is who Will Johnson is to me. Like, not maybe their traits are the same, but how they, how they've entered the draft process. Like, Will Johnson to me is a lockdown corner.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird draft where, teams that are up in the top 10, like if there was 5 good first round quarterbacks in this draft, 5 quarterbacks to go in the top 10 picks. Like, teams are desperate up there, like, so it's crazy, man.
All right, guys. I'm going to be back tomorrow with a video for y'all guys to be on the lookout for that. Until then, fins up all day, every day. Appreciate you, Neal. We'll see y'all in the next one. Enjoy the Senior Bowl, too.